Last year, Arizona's offensive line was a huge part of its success for a good percentage of the season, but it will be a drastically different unit this year.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. This show is brought to you today by LinkedIn. Check it out, LinkedIn. All right, where is that little interface? All right, there we go, LinkedIn. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about Arizona's offensive line today. We're going to talk some Arizona football and what exactly is going on here. Now, last year's team was very, very good along the offensive line, and that's because there were a lot of NFL players on the offensive line. Not generally, when you have good NFL players, you are going to have a good offensive line, and it was anchored by Jordan Morgan, who was a first-round pick this past year. Jordan Morgan is one of the best players on the entire team, and Jordan Morgan is also obviously going to probably be a long-term NFL starter. And first of all, I got to apologize to Jordan Morgan. My bad, Jordan Morgan, because I did not see Jordan Morgan being the player that he became. I saw him at Marana, and I thought he was a big kid. I did not know that that drive was there. I just did not see him becoming the player that he did. And honestly, he was one of the best. He became one of the best offensive linemen in school history. When you talk about the best offensive linemen in school history during their times at the U of A, you're talking about your John Finas. You're talking about your Glenn Parkers. You're talking about your Yusuf Scotts, players like that. And Jordan Morgan is squarely in that discussion. He is, and he did kind of a little bit of everything. He was able to pass block, run block, and he's going to be a fun player to be able to watch as he continues to develop into the in the NFL. One thing I got to give Kevin Sumlin, and again, Kevin Sumlin didn't do a lot of good stuff here, but he did have a few good players in hindsight that he was able to leave behind. And Jordan Morgan was certainly one of those players. And not only was Jordan Morgan one of those players, but Michael Wiley, who ran behind him, was one of those players as well. So again, you know, when it came to it, had an NFL player there in Jordan Morgan. And I got to give Jed Fish credit, too. They did a very good job developing him. And I got to give Jordan Morgan a lot of credit, too, because not only did he get developed, he was also the dude who was able to, when he tore his ACL at the end of his junior season, he could have gone to the NFL and probably been a second or a third round pick, but he stayed around and became a real he recovered very quickly. And I think that's something, if you're an NFL team, you're also going to be kind of excited about, because 2-3 months removed from surgery, he was already kind of running on the sideline. He's quickly a quick recoverer, and Tyler Owens and that staff did a very, very good job with him. So that was he's moved on, and we saw in the Alamo Bowl that is not somebody that you can just easily replace. Now, granted, Joe Borhone is probably not the best player to be able to really make this comparison for, because Joe Borhone is not very good. And you saw in the Alamo Bowl that when he was put in there at offensive tackle, it became a disaster. Noah Fifita was running for his life, and that the squad that Arizona was going against certainly smelled the blood in the water, and they went right after him. So that's something that Arizona fans, you obviously watched, you saw. We lived it up close. It was not pretty. It was not something that you want to go through again. So now we're going to talk about the stalwarts of this offensive line and what exactly that means. The first one is Big Jonah Sabanea. Jonah very much has first-round potential. I kind of think that he's better as a guard, but this coaching staff feels that he's better at the tackle position, and I will defer to them on that. Obviously Oglesby does a very good job, and he is. So we will find out about that one. But I do think that Big Jonah at that left tackle spot is going to have to be one of the stalwarts of the team, and there's no reason why he can't. He is a he is just a physical monster. When you look at Jordan Morgan, you can see a player that is obviously very, very good, but he also looks like an offensive lineman, which is, a good thing. Jonas Savaiinaea has a thin body for a offensive lineman in that you see him, and yeah, I mean, he's got the gut like an offensive lineman should, but he's also got ab muscles. I mean, you can see it. He carries his 330 pounds about as well as you will ever see a lineman. Again, when you look at Alabama, when you look at Georgia, when you look at schools like that, these are the schools that get players like Savaiinaea, and it's very, very good. It was very advantageous for Arizona that COVID did happen because Savaiinaea was wildly under-recruited. I think if, teams had enough time to kind of poke and prod around, they probably would have come back and said, that's a 5-star player. And he should be a 5-star player. Like I said, I think that his better position is guard, but I feel very, very comfortable with him at left tackle for this Arizona team. And they plan on keeping him there. So that is one position that I think is going to be more than okay. But we're going to obviously get to the other positions here shortly because there are some obvious concerns. But Big Jonas Savaiinaea, can't really ask for anything more than that. And someone that, along with Teteroa McMillan and Tacario Davis, probably has some real, first-round potential. By the way, wouldn't that be wild to see Arizona have a first-round pick this year and then have, 3 first-round picks the following season? Something new is brewing here in the desert. But we will obviously find that out and see what that all entails. Now, the other position that Arizona is very, very comfortable with is Wendell Moy. I think with Wendell Moy, you're very, very comfortable with him at that guard spot. He's another player that I think is going to play in the NFL. He has a lot of potential, and that was another really, really good find by the coaching staff. This one to me, though, is a little bit kind of inexcusable as to why Moy was rated in the manner in which he is, because he played at Long Beach Poly. I mean, he is a big, big dude that played at Long Beach Poly, and I'm still not exactly sure where he is, why he was so underrated in the manner in which he was, but he was obviously underrated, and that is that's something that I think goes without saying. But he's a monster. Whether it's pulling in pass pro, he's going to be an NFL player. He's about 6'2". He's not built like Jonah, in that Wendell Moy looks like a guard, but again, guards are supposed to look a certain way. I believe he will play in the NFL. I could see him moving on after this year. It would not surprise me in the least, but just a lot of potential. And I got to give this coaching staff, the Brent Brennan coaching staff, a lot of credit, because Jed Fish certainly tried his best to get Wendell Moy to come to Seattle. And Wendell Moy said, I will not do this. I will not go to Seattle. And Arizona is much, much better for it, obviously. He is, but he's going to be a stalwart. Along with Big Jonah, these two dudes are stalwarts on that offensive line and are going to be the real cornerstones. He is Wendell Moy, I would like to see not only be an all-conference performer, but I'd also like to see him start pushing for some All-American honors. I think that he's he's got that potential, and I think that he can do that. We'll obviously find out what he can do, but I think that there's certainly the potential there to be that guy. Both of those guys are NFL players. You feel very, very comfortable about both of them. Now we're going to get to the rest of the line, but first, LinkedIn, my friends, LinkedIn. All right, check it out, LinkedIn. All right, here's the deal with LinkedIn. LinkedIn.com/lockedoncollege. This is your one-stop shop. You can get jobs, and if you can get jobs pretty much anywhere you want. And with LinkedIn, and you can also hire people. And that is the cool thing about it as well. You can hire people and you will be happy with it, because he can, everybody has got somebody that has gotten a job through. Everybody has got knows somebody that has gotten a job through LinkedIn, and you probably hired somebody through LinkedIn. And that's, again, because it works. So we will very much find out. We will very much find out, who can do what. But LinkedIn is at the very top of the list. Check it out, linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, let's talk a little bit about the other positions. Because, again, you got two absolute stars on the offensive line, two guys who are absolute studs. And we've been over that in, obviously, Jonah Savaiinaea and Wendell Moy. But now, let's talk more about some of the other two dudes who are very solid. And let's go with that. Let's go with the center position, and then we'll go to the guard. Josh Baker is very solid. I like Josh Baker a lot. Josh Baker is the epitome of the guy who probably won't play in the NFL, but I don't really care too much about that because it doesn't matter to me if he will not play in the NFL, because either way, he is good. And he's a good college player. He's kind of the quarterback of that offensive line, and he's been a solid player now for a couple of years. Arizona's very lucky to have him back, and not only are they lucky to have him back, it's also a dude who is just kind of a cerebral, gets it. When you look up players that just kind of get football, Josh Baker is that guy. Would not surprise me at all if he's a coach. Again, not an overwhelming player, but somebody that I think can play, like I said, I don't know that he's ever an all-conference player, but you can win a lot of games with Josh Baker as your center. There's a reason that multiple coaching staffs feel very comfortable with him, and just another guy that was just been a good get. He's continued to improve, and the coaching staff feels very comfortable with him, as they should, because of what he is able to do. Big fan of Josh Baker, and I think that for Arizona, you gotta look at him and be like, all right, that dude gets it. That dude gets what Arizona needs from him, and they're gonna, he's gonna be that dude. So again, not probably the NFL prospect that Jonah Savaiinaea or Wendell Moy are, but a very good player and somebody that you're very, very comfortable with, in the grand scheme of things, being your starting center. Arizona is in good hands at the center spot. Then the other one, Leif Magnuson. Love Leif. Leif, in my opinion, might be the most underrated player on the football team. He is, when Leif plays, Leif is good. I got to give Lamont Lovett a lot of credit when it comes to Leif Magnuson, because he told me, he said early on, he said, don't sleep on this dude. He said Leif Magnuson can play. And this was 3 years ago. When Leif played last year, he was very good. I don't know exactly what the deal was with the previous coaching staff, because Leif probably should have played more. We'll give you the exact example. When Jordan Morgan didn't play in the Alamo Bowl, because obviously he didn't want to get injured, wanted to get ready for the NFL. Totally get it. That's what kids do. Joe Borhone was awful. And not only was he awful, you just knew kind of each time what was happening. But when Arizona switched the O-line and when they brought in Leif Magnuson and moved everyone over, the O-line got better, and it got better immediately. That's because Leif can play. Leif is cerebral. Also, Leif, what's cool about it, Leif just graduated, by the way. Shout out Leif. But he can also play. He can also get downhill. He's just a good, solid player, and I think he's going to be a nice linchpin for this team for the next couple years. I would be very surprised if Leif does not start, because also Leif does it the right way. Leif has the approval of his team, of his teammates, and again, just a good dude as well. He continues to get better and comes from a really, really good family. Shout out Quinn Magnuson and to his lovely wife. But he's good. And I don't know that anybody quite saw the impact that he could have until that Alamo Bowl game was over. And you're like, whoa. Look at the difference when Leif was in the game and when Leif was not in the game. And it was stark. It was stunning. So again, big shout outs to Leif. So that's the four players that I think you feel very, very comfortable with. Obviously, Jonah Savaiinaea at one of the tackles, Wendell Moy at guard. Then you've also got Leif Magnuson at guard, and then you've got Josh Baker at center. So now let's talk about the other tackle position. Ideally, this is Raymond Polito's spot. But the problem with Raymond Polito is very, very simple. Is that he's hurt all the time. And when I may say he's hurt all the time, I mean that he is hurt all the time. He's a talented kid. I mean, this is a dude that was committed to Alabama at one point. And when he came in here late. And it is funny saying that somebody came in here late when they came in here actually really on time. But the coaching staff put him in there, and when he was able to play, he showed some real potential. But the problem is that he's always hurt. And when you're always hurt, it, like you look at it as his freshman year, he was in and out of the lineup with a bunch of different ailments. And then this past year, he was hurt as well. Or this spring, he was hurt as well. And he was walking around with a noticeable limp. So you'd love to be able to count on him, but I just don't know that you're going to be able to count on him because he's always hurt. But if he can stay healthy, I think you feel pretty good about that tackle spot. I just don't know that there's any indication that he is going to stay healthy. But if he can stay healthy, then you're obviously going to be in a nice little spot. But that's the other position. That tackle spot, they have got to try to figure out. And I think maybe the hope is that Jonah Rodriguez can be that player. Jonah Rodriguez coming in from San Diego State was a very high, not very highly rated, but he was an upper tier 3-star type player out of California this past year, redshirted at San Diego State, but can move pretty well. And Greg Biggins thought very highly of him. This Arizona coaching staff is going to play him at tackle. And I think if he can stay healthy, he has every opportunity to be able to win that starting tackle spot because there's a lot of potential there. You watch him and there's a lot to like. I mean, this was a top 50 kid out of California. He's big. He can move. It's just going to be, you just haven't really seen him on the field yet. And that's why I think that's why it's important to be able to, not really get ahead of ourselves too much, but watch and just be like, all right, this guy can do that. This guy can do this. But again, a dude that's got some real potential to him. Excited to see what he can do. But I think that was a sneaky nice pickup by the University of Arizona. And I'm going to be interested to see what he can do because I do think that he has got a lot of potential in play. Now, so those are kind of the two dudes that you're looking at that other tackle position because some of the other guys just quite aren't good enough, in my opinion. Alex Deuce never really made a lot of sense to me for a couple different reasons. Listen, the previous coaching staff was very good at generally evaluating, finding offensive linemen, whether that was Jonas Sabanea, whether that was Wendell Moy. They did a pretty good job of finding under the radar players. They loved Alex Deuce. I think they thought that was going to be Jordan Morgan's replacement. I don't see any of that. During camp, he was not very good. And the track record is kind of weird because he was a low 3-star kid coming out of high school here in Arizona, went off to Northwestern and kind of got buried at Northwestern. That's where you kind of lose me. If you're at Oregon, like a player we're going to get to in a second, and you don't play, okay, cool, I get it. But if you're at Northwestern and you can't really get on the field either, that becomes a little bit more problematic for me. So I'm not exactly sure on that one. Then with those guys, that's kind of where I'm looking at. But I don't really expect much out of Deuce. I think that, he kind of looked good on paper, but if he turns out to be a good player, then I will certainly apologize, but I don't see it. But like I said, would love to be wrong on that. If I'm wrong on that, I will be the first one to gladly admit it that he turned out to be a good football player. So I kind of lump him into with the Elijah Paynes and the, we'll get to those guys in a second. But there's also another intriguing prospect out of Oregon. But first, we got to talk about FanDuel. FanDuel, check it out, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Here's the great thing with FanDuel is that you can bet on a game and you know that your money is good. And that is a very reassuring thing. When you know your money's good, when you know you can bet on something and you're like, all right, period, point blank, I know that my money's good. That is a very reassuring aspect. FanDuel.com/lockedon has the goods when it comes to it. So again, check it out. You will thank me later when it comes to this. FanDuel.com/lockedon. You can bet on things that you're not even really interested in, because if you got a little bit of money, a little bit of skin in the game, then it becomes a little bit more fascinating. So again, check it out, fanduel.com/lockedon. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk about Michael Wooten. This to me is a little bit more intriguing. Now, again, he was a low 3-star kid out of Oregon. I get all of that, or that went to Oregon. But just because you go to Oregon and don't play, that doesn't mean anything to me necessarily, because it's obviously a different level of talent. When you're at Northwestern and you're buried on the depth chart, that to me is a little bit different than if you're at Oregon and you're buried on the depth chart. He's a massive kid. Arizona clearly likes him, and it'll be interesting to see what he can do. I don't have any expectations, good or bad, but I could see him being a solid player. I am curious to see, because again, I think that there is the potential there for him to be a good, very good football player. I just don't know in what capacity that is going to be, but I think that there is that. I think there's a very real possibility that he's good, but those are the kind of players that you take chances on. The big, physical, athletic guys who maybe they didn't play at the big time school, but they got the potential to be really good. I'm excited to see what he can do. But that's kind of where I'm at with that. Now, some of the other reasons that the offensive line certainly needs some more players is that some of the projects, I think some of the players just turned out to not probably be that good. I mean, you look at Tylen Gonzalez. I totally understand, kid out of Carlsbad, New Mexico, just turned out to not be that good. Just kind of the way it is. Just turned out to kind of not be that good. But I get taking him. He was 6'8", 320 pounds, really athletic, just not that good. Elijah Payne, a medium level 3-star kid out of Las Vegas. You take that kid and try every single day of the week. He just turned out to not be that good. Rhino, I think, is better than those two guys. I just don't know that Rhino is ready at this point, but I do think that Rhino has some potential. But overall, you got 4 good offensive linemen. You got some guys with some potential, and then you got some guys that I think you probably just struck out on. It's that simple. But I think when the portal opens back up, I think you got to get some more offensive linemen. I am very intrigued by Jonah Rodriguez. I think I could see Jonah Rodriguez being good. We will find out about that one. But, some of the other guys, I think you probably, like with Deuce, Tylen Gonzalez, Elijah Payne, you probably just struck out on those guys. Elijah Payne is one that I probably won't give up on yet entirely, but we're going to see on all of those. But certainly a position the staff's got to address. I think Oglesby is a very, very good coach, though, and I think he knows what he wants. So I got faith that this coaching staff will be able to figure that one out. Okay, now coming back tomorrow, we're going to talk some Arizona basketball and some Arizona football. Again, the U of A is in the offseason, but we take no weekdays off here on Locked On Wildcats. But as always, very, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. Again, Arizona loaded in football, loaded in basketball. We're going to kind of go probably position by position, break down some units, tell you about each of the players, what you need to know, and all of the good stuff that comes with it. But on that note, we're going to be signing off for today, but we will be back with you tomorrow. Thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. Bear down, back the A, and have a great rest of your day.